Pakistan are set to play 8 internationals against West Indies starting next week, 3 T20Is followed by 5 ODIs. And it's not just the national team that will be in action, there's also the A series that will run parallelly to these series. Welcome to the Outside View. We'll talk about and we'll look ahead to this international series between West Indies and Pakistan. First up, the head-to-head figures. Clearly, West Indies are favorites, 7 wins as opposed to 3 for Pakistan. But remember, there are those 3 tied games as well. And the last time these two sides met was an interesting affair in the T20 World Cup 2020, where Pakistan had a wonderful run chase against the West Indies. Ananya Upendran is alongside me. Ananya will talk about the West Indies and Pakistan squads. We'll look at the host squad first. 13 members for the national side, 15 more for the A side. Your thoughts on how West Indies shape up? There are these usual names. Anisa Mohammed returns after missing the last series against England. The twins in Kaishona and Kaishia Knights return, but there are these new names as well in this squad.
Yeah, there are a couple of new names. I'm very pleased to see Anisa Mohammed back, but I am quite surprised with Afi Fletcher's omission. I mean, I feel like she is one of West Indies' better bowlers. I think close to one of the best leg spinners in the world. So it's surprising that she has been left out. She didn't have a great time in England, didn't bowl as much as we probably thought she would have, but yeah, I think that was the biggest surprise for me. But then again, there's Casey Schultz, who they called up for that tour of England. She's kind of pushed into that A side. I think, that's probably because they want her to get some game time. They don't think she will play in those T20s. So it's probably better for her to be in that A side. But another strange omission, Shemaine Campbell. She is, again, one of those names that you always see in the West Indies side. Didn't have a great tour of England as well, but she's one of those consistent performers who you just expect to see in that side. But with the Knights returning, I suppose that didn't leave any room for Shemaine Campbell.
Yes, they were a part of the 30 players who were in the camp that started in May. But let's look at Pakistan now, because Javeria Khan returns. No Bisma Maroof, of course, she's on a maternity break. So there are all these interesting names as well, because last time we saw them in action was against South Africa, where Nahida Khan played she almost lost her place, and we probably thought that was it for Nahida Khan in international colors. But looking at that Pakistan squad, a 26-member squad, the national plus the A squad, you think that she still has it in her to play at the international level?
Well, Pakistan have clearly seen something, and they trust her enough to have picked her again. We did write her off, I think, then, and it will be wonderful if she manages to get a truckload of runs against West Indies. She is one of those players who has proven herself at international level, and therefore she retained her contract with the PCB. But I'm a little surprised that they have stuck with her. But then again, when you look at it, it's 26 members, so. And Pakistan have this tendency to kind of run around in circles and pick the same group of players. Even in this 26-member squad, there are so many, recognized names. You see Sidra Amin come back in, Iram Javed. There are a lot of players who have been in and around that international level. And I suppose in some ways, looking ahead to the World Cup, you do want experience in that squad. You don't have someone like Bisma Maroof, who is a huge part of that Pakistan batting lineup. So to have some experience who will then, guide the likes of Aisha Naseem, who has, made a splash at the international level. She had a fantastic tour of South Africa. So I guess, you do want a bit of experience in that lineup, and Pakistan have probably stuck with those recognized names, I suppose.
Yes, it will also be the first time that Courtney Walsh will be in charge of West Indies in an international series. So that will also be a sort of a new beginning for West Indies.
Yeah, definitely will be. And I think, since the time he's taken up that role of head coach, he's constantly said that, we need to raise the standards of our cricket. We need to find a way to constantly compete with those top 4 nations. West Indies have, really slipped since that 2016 World Cup, T20 World Cup win. They haven't really been challenging the top 4 sides, and they have the talent to do it. They just haven't been able to perform on the big stage. So Courtney Walsh has spoken a lot about it. They've trained a lot, since he's taken over, and I'm sure he'll just be happy to kind of get a larger group onto the field to see, what he has to work with going ahead to those World Cup qualifiers in December.
Right then, 3 T20Is to begin with. Pakistan are coming off a loss against South Africa earlier this year. West Indies didn't have a best of times against England last year. So Ananya, 3 T20Is, where do you see these games headed towards?
That's a really difficult question. I mean, you look at West Indies on paper, they have the power, they have the experience. But then again, you look at the form that someone like Hayley Matthews was in England. There were no runs coming off her bat. They relied solely on Deandra Doughton. So I feel like I would want to side with West Indies simply because they're the more powerful unit. But I feel like Pakistan are probably in a better place, than the West Indies are. They did play well against South Africa. So I think I'm going to go 2-1 Pakistan, but that second win for Pakistan is going to be very, very hard fought, I think.
Right, I won't differ from you. I'm going to say 2-1, but I think that the series will go into a decider. So let's see which side wins it. Right then, 3 T20Is, the first of which is on Wednesday. We'll see you after the match on the outside view.